I am also now told that His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP28 in Dubai. Ambitious, just together.
And with that, a warm welcome to all of you joining us today at the German Pavilion, here live on site, but also live in the live stream. So from wherever you're joining us, feel very much welcomed. And maybe you just heard the news that there is, of course, a news that made history. As the COP president just mentioned, we have delivered history today. 1.5 years work behind the scenes, which is approved. So the transitional committee has met throughout the year, and just now it happened that their recommendations on the operationalization of the funding arrangements, including a fund to respond to loss and damage, have been approved. And just a few seconds ago, UAE just pledged $100 million and still ongoing. And Germany also pledges 100 million, just to give you an insight of what's going on here now on the hot take in Dubai. And with that, again, welcome here in the German Pavilion. It's great to see a lot of faces here live, but also, of course, in the live stream. Good afternoon. It's the first live event here in the German Pavilion. So we are starting in our 14 days program. And we start with the topic of sports and SDGs. So how does this get together? The sports topic with the climate action topic, but also with the sustainable development goals. When we think of sport, of course, sport radiates far beyond. Sports bring people together. It brings societies together. And we'd like to elaborate on that power of inspiration a little bit longer. And of course, what our guests of today think of that new framework called SPORTS20. So the questions that will keep us busy now for the next upcoming hour: what role can sport play in the big word transformation? And how were the SDGs transferred into the fields of action in sport? And of course, then we dive into the SPORTS20 framework. What's the purpose? What does it mean? Also, a warm welcome, of course, to all of you, a kind invitation to all of you here live on site for your questions. And of course, to your questions in the stream, we do have Slido for you. So please don't be shy and send your questions along. My name is Katie Gallas. I'm an international moderator, and I'm looking forward to our conversation now. Before we're going to start with our panelists, and I introduce you all in a second, I'd like to welcome now and give the floor to Tanja and Stefan, to the left and to the right. Tanja Verkau, you're the founder and managing director of Impact. She is an experienced founder that combines more than 25 years knowledge of business, innovation, science, civic engagement, and NGO with a deep passion for sustainability. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. And Stefan Wagner is also with us here, founder and managing director of Sports for Future. Stefan supports with your office, you support sustainability management, for example, German Ice Hockey League, Adler Mannheim, and in 2019 you initiated Sports for Future, which is more or less a sporting response to the Fridays for Future movement, led by teenage climate activists. And that brings us already to Luisa Neubauer, who's also joining us for our conversation. It's great to have you here, climate activist from Germany, and we come to you with our conversation in a second. But thanks to all of you for joining us, and this is your round of applause to heat a little bit up the pavilion. I just mentioned, so everybody has a connection to sports and the passion for sports. So Tanja, of course, you and Stefan, you brought us together for that side event. Maybe you can elaborate why you brought us together and why sports brought you two together for that issue that you're tackling on.
Yeah, lovely question. It was actually summer 2021. My team and I, we were just developing a sustainability standard for the German Football Bundesliga. And we were working and visiting 12 out of the 36 clubs. And TSG Hoffenheim was one of the clubs. And when we met, it was a little bit like a wow thing, because when we started talking about sustainability, I think we both thought, whoa, we really think alike, we have the same goals, we have the same ambition level. And we thought, wow, if we manage to make sports sustainable, wow, what leverage could that be? Could that maybe be the impact driver we're all looking for? And I think that was the beginning for SPORTS20 quite a while ago.
SPORTS20, What does it mean, and what's the motivation behind SPORTS20, Stefan? Can you give us a glimpse of what's going on your desk?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having us. Yeah, I have to go back to 2019, right after the funding of Fridays for Future and many other movements around that. We have launched Sports for Future, and we have now a great network of about 500 plus supporters organizations, professional organizations such as German Football Association, German Sports Youth Association, Bundesliga clubs like TSG Hoffenheim, Werder Bremen, Mainz 05, national teams like the hockey team, the national team, and also lots of amateur clubs based on voluntary work. And we have a great team behind, ambassadors, and our core team, Antonia, Yannick, Nele, Philip, Claudia, and Barbara, just to mention them here because they do so much work into this. So why something new? Sports for Future is established predominantly as a German network. We focus on climate, and we try to make low threshold offers and try to create grassroots action. This remains very important, and we will continue to take action here and through our projects, which we're already supporting in the Global South. That's our backing, but it was a starting point to discuss with Tanya and her team, how do we raise the ambition to a level we need. And at the end of this discussion, it was clear that we need a different perspective. We have to tell the story from the end, the story from a 100% transformed sport with an international network to show change by a popular example with a holistic approach. And so this is a new dimension, a new constellation, and so we decided to create a new entity and a new name, and this is SPORTS20. And so why do we need this ambition? Unfortunately, we see often the opposite out there. People are saying, oh, we're already doing so much. And if we do more and have more ambition, our prosperity is in danger, and the money has to be earned first. We do not see the story from the end. And we all know that the path we are currently taking doesn't bring the end we all want, a sustainable, livable world. And so if we don't take these facts seriously and if we don't, if we still continue to close our eyes here, it will be easy to continue torpedoing the change which is needed. And let's have a look then. So it's easy to stoke fear and insecurity, and it's easy to incite those who appear to be the disadvantaged. And so at the end of the day, we will lose what we want to save. And our answer, our approach is through love and enthusiasm of sport to inspire, to unify, and to show what we can win together. So a safe and sustainable world. And so this can be our common playing field, and this is the reason why we started to make SPORTS20 as a contribution to that, and how it looks like, that we would like to show you now, first of all with a short film, and afterwards with the presentation.
Thank you. So you brought some images with you. Let's have a look.
Sport influences society, economy, money, and politics in the largest scale. We need a change to solve our multiple crises. Our sustainability crisis. Sustainability needs achievable translation and a roadmap. SPORTS20 is that ambitious framework to empower a global movement. It works with footprint and handprint. It is based on scientific research and strong global alliances and partnerships. We need to take action. Together as a team, game day is now. Join us, SPORTS20.
Beautiful images, but we need more details. Tanya, so let's go and let's dive into the framework. You brought some facts and figures.
Lovely, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very happy to tell you a little bit about our framework and talk a little bit more about the details, why we're doing what we're doing. I actually need the clicker, and I can't move, and you also can't move. Thank you very much. If we look into our future, it is not necessarily a bright one, especially not for next generations. A baby born today lives, and depending where it lives, until the year 2079 or far into the 22nd century. We, excuse my French, have the planet, and it's our duty to finally wake up. Be aware of how we're taking responsibility for our release of the planet to people, not our region or our time frame. The legacy problem hasn't been solved at all so far. The State of Climate Action Report 2023 shows us that no sector is accelerating fast enough. So our timing and ambition are not sufficient. We're far away from climate justice. We obviously have a lack of progress towards the solution of the interconnected climate pollution and biodiversity crisis. What you see here is the global daily surface temperature, and the problem is pretty obvious. 2023 is going to be the warmest year ever measured. This November, probably the warmest ever measured month. Record temperatures, record emissions, really sounds like a broken record. And additionally, we have societal and social ills, such as poverty, inequality, and other kinds of preventable human suffering. You all know the concept of planetary boundaries. And look, 6 out of the 9 are already crossed. And that happened in the past years, when we already knew everything about our crisis and our challenges. We basically know it since the Club of Rome more than 50 years ago. Closing windows of opportunities to achieve net zero, halt biodiversity loss, and as well stop and decrease human suffering. Time to act is now. And if we know time to act is now, are we in the decade of action? We think no. The world has an assignment since 7 years ago, but are we living, planning, working, and consuming according to that plan? I'd strongly say no. Our decade is a decade of waiting and wasting time, and our current little improvements are not sufficient at all. And accordingly, the SDGs are most of the time a nice-looking decoration in sport and beyond. Corresponding actions do not deliver the heavily needed substantial improvements, so what we see a lot is SDG picking, with a rather superficial use of the very nice-looking SDG tires as a decoration in annual reports or sustainability reports. And on top, we have greenwashing 2.0 with the SDG washing. Question, does donating $500 actually address no poverty? So, we all know the answer. And what we need to be addressing is several gaps. Gaps in ambition, gaps in performance, but mainly gaps in responsibility to change and improve. Gap 1, requirements for a truly sustainable conduct versus incremental improvements in a social and ecological performance. Gap 2, necessary transformation of the core business versus the small changes not delivering the outcomes needed. And Gap 3, decision control and influence of organizations versus necessary changes in surroundings, infrastructure and partnerships delivered by other sectors. So, we have a multiple crisis. And what we do with that? We think we need to get a strong sector moving and inspire others to also get moving. We think sport can be that sector. It can be the solution because it has a power no other sector really has. It's pure emotion and it affects people like nothing else. Sport has a gift and at the same time it has a really, really big duty. It brings together and influences civil society, economy, money, and politics. It has millions of fans and people doing sports, powerful sponsors and partners, investors and money, and the regulatory and political side. This is the power we should use. SPORTS20 works with that power. We believe another world is possible. We believe in a completely transformed world of sports, a world that takes advantage of its power, a world that realizes its obligation to be part of the solution, not the problem. With our SPORTS20 framework, we show a way to that transformed world and invite everybody who really wants to be sustainable to join. SPORTS20 is ambitious and a result of 18-month scientific research. If I say we have studied every report, every data, every framework, and every pledge, that's probably not true, but it really feels like that. But we can't do this alone. We need strong partnerships and alliances, a global network, which we think we already have, but it still can grow. But mainly we need the regulatory side. We need to pressure topics, no matter if we talk mobility or supply chain, because that can't be solved within the sector of sports. That can only be solved jointly. SPORTS20 indicates what sport can do by itself for a sustainable development agenda, but also indicates the necessary changes outside the sector. So what does it take to make that vision of another world come true? Well, basically, 3 things. The basis is transformation. SPORTS20 works with that vision of a comprehensively transformed sport on the basis of the SDGs, as if all the SDGs have been fully reached. What is essential for that? A tool that translates the SDGs into a roadmap to sustainability for different kinds of sports. It is not that most organizations, individuals, or sectors don't want sustainability. It's more they do not really know how to get there because sustainability is heavily complex. Business models need to be torn apart and put together by the means of sustainability. For a sustainable future, we need an ambitious but manageable path and roadmap. Second, this can't be done in the ivory tower. It needs substantial experience and comprehensive expertise in sports and sustainability. The basis is a solid foundation, but it needs additional expertise from a strong global network. And it needs new thinking. Talking about footprints, which is what the world currently does, is really not enough. We need to be talking about handprint, because that's the leverage we need. And third, we need to get moving. We need to show the power of sport to support the sustainable development agenda and emphasize where everyone has to do their part. We need the regulatory side and infrastructure, as well as teaming up with partners, local communities, fans, broader public, to inspire with the positive power of sport. So how does it look, our framework? What is the basic idea behind? The basis are the 17 goals, 169 under targets, and many indicators. Starting points are the SDGs on the one hand, and 6 general areas of action that come very much from how sports organizations work, live, and are organized. We develop topics and principles of a sustainable conduct to pinpoint areas of action in order to guide action and behavior of sports organizations. That results in a technical framework as a core document to guide the transformation of sport. The framework serves as a basis for different guidelines, which indicate what sustainable conduct would mean for different kinds of sports, showcase best practices, share knowledge with other kinds of sports that have similar challenges. However, SPORTS20 is not yet another framework or initiative that can be added to the list. It's about working together, adaptable to existing approaches of sports by considering current strategies and concepts of other sports organizations, as well as broader initiatives within the industry, such as UNFCCC's Sport for Climate Action or the IUCN's Sports for Nature in the development process. But in comparison, we have much higher and stricter requirements and ambition. So, the solution comes from the industry for the industry. We're backed by a fantastic network with experience and expertise in sport and sustainability, and we're supported by a worldwide alliance of athletes, ambassadors, NGOs, and sustainable sports initiatives to foster substantial change. We're very familiar with the perspectives and approaches in the market, you heard that, about what Stefan is doing, and we're doing a little bit the same, as well as the challenges and hurdles that actually keep people from doing the right thing. So join us. The game is ours. Thank you. And now I would like to hand over to Stefan. But I can't. No, I'm not throwing.
I help. No worries. Thank you, Tanja.
Thank you.
There we go. A strong team, so who is in your team?
I just have to add a few points. First, we have already in a very short time reached out to many other people who are very, very open to collaborate on this with us. As you see here, the people we have been talking to, because for us it's very important that we don't have the German or North European perspective only in this network, and so we have to include different views immediately. And so we are very, very glad and proud that we are able to reach out to those people we've seen here, and we are in ongoing talks all the time. And we have a deep dive later at the WWF Panda Hub at 7 p.m. Today, so you can get to know those guys here much better there. Another thing is, the second point is that sport can literally show that change can be desirable and attractive. And so we try to translate this framework, which Tanya just introduced, into future pictures, let's say. And you have already seen some, and you see some within this presentation and in this film. And we are working on them with partners from us, future scientists, Frieda and Felix from the Future Game 2050. And we are looking forward to go deeper into that, because I think we need those positive and desirable pictures who are attractive and create desire instead of fear about change. And the third thing is, Tanya mentioned that already, but it's really important that we don't see the responsibility only in sports. We see the responsibility on many, many different levels of actors globally, nation-based, by companies and sports. And we have to use stages like this and use sports as a voice for change, which we need in sports, but anywhere else also. And so this is what we're trying to do.
Thank you for showing us this very holistic approach. Thank you very much. And we're going to deep dive now into more keywords. What I see now, I see a familiar face, Nike Lorenz, who's also now part of our panel. So I would switch to our panel now. With us is, of course, Luisa Neubauer. I already welcomed you. You are a 27-year-old climate activist from Germany and a representative of the German climate movement. In 2022, The Time listed you as one of the 100 global emerging voices. So thank you for making the time and for being here with us. And with us also, I can see you now, is Nike Lorenz, the captain of the German national hockey team, joining us now digitally. I hope you can hear me well. And for several years, you have been a full-time national field hockey player, participating in the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio and then 2021 Olympic Games in Tokyo, studying on the side, and you're now freelancing for an ESG consultancy, but you're always advocating for climate justice and social justice. Thank you for joining us, Nike. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for having me.
Beautifully. And also with us in this panel round is Dr. Eckhard von Hirschhausen, also joining us digitally. You're a physician, you're a science journalist, you're founder of the Healthy Planet, Healthy People Foundation, which aims to communicate really into solution-oriented, humorous, understandable, inspiring, and visionary new ways that the climate crisis presents a threat to the health of everybody across the globe, but with a new way of storytelling. Eckhard, thank you for joining us. And thumbs up means you can hear me well. I hope I can hear you in a second as well. Great. Luisa, I'd like to start with you. We've heard a lot about bringing change, using the power of sport. Yes. From your perspective, is that the way forward, how we can leverage, of course, this power that we need for climate action through sport? Is that a possible way that you see?
Well, risking some frustration in the room, I don't think we will get everything we need through sports, but it's one really important pathway. And I think what is in these decisive times, in these times full of division, I think it's easy to forget how desperate we are for unity, finding a common ground that can bring us together again. And in fact, I think that's where the movement that I'm part of emerged from. We found the one thing that everyone can agree on in a society, and that's children. And we used the voice of the children, of the youth, and we said, take us seriously, respect us, respect our future. In a place like Germany, there are very few other things that I think everyone can agree on. One of them is Herbert Grönemeyer. We got him too. And then it's getting a bit tricky. I think there's cars, which is complicated in a climate way. There's schnitzel. I think we can agree on that one. And there's football. And I think that was initially where we came together as Sports for Future and as Fridays for Future, finding out that sport has this amazing power to unite people that would usually very much, not sit on the same table even, or not even, look at the same table. And now bringing this to a global level, using that force that sport can really, that can use and grow everywhere, while critically looking at the responsibilities of players in the field as well. I think it's a really beautiful approach and very, very desperately needed in these times where people are easily giving up, easily, getting lost in despair.
Yeah. So.
Something to add, Stefan?
No,
or
just
a lot, like a big nodding. Eckhard, I saw you nodding as well, and you were also part of as a speaker at the sports conference in Germany just recently. So maybe you also, very engaged in combining sports for climate action. Why do you think it's so crucial to use and to leverage the power of sport for sustainable change?
Yes. My sport career ended 40 years ago. Nika, I was playing hockey a long time ago, but I still see the uniting power of sporting events like Lisa just mentioned. And I am working for German public television, and I want you just to think of the possibilities of positive communication for a problem that many people are not aware of the dimension, for example, heat. This is the most unusual PowerPoint presentation I ever did by showing it to my own iPhone. But this is the picture of Taylor Swift. And just think of how this story really went viral. And the headline was, Taylor Swift, victim of terrible heat stroke at concert, and even a fan died. So just think of this fact traveling around the world, and we have 100,000 people dying of heat in Europe each year, and nobody talks about it. So this is the power of public attention, and think of a football star collapsing. This has happened already, and everyone starts talking about the difficulties of heat. And we try not to look at it. When you see this picture, we try to hide it, but everyone's seen it, that they are collapsing. Animal world, the lion is the kingdom, the king of the animals. But why is he in the shade? Because all mammals are having a difficult time with heat regulation. This is why we're together with Scientists for Future and Health for Future, we had this demonstration with putting a bucket of water over our heads, because heat is difficult to take on the picture. And this is where we met with Rudi Völler and Sven Klöger. We're trying to motivate the DFB. And the next big event in Europe is the European Championship in Germany. Just imagine the power of role models. If the whole team arrives with Deutsche Bahn and the French team arrives with TGV, just imagine what you eat at the stadium. If it's not only currywurst, but also really decent falafel. And imagine people going to the toilet. And like Roskilde Festival in Denmark, you use the power of cradle to cradle with urine, because it contains phosphate, and you can have really millions of people all of a sudden talking about planetary boundaries and doing their part in being part of the solution. And these are the stories I would love to see in 2024, and this is why I'm happy to be on your panel.
Thank you. I hope you have more photos for us later in a second in the next round, showing us through your iPhone. And Nike is also with us. Nike, and this brings us, of course, to the main question. Do we need more storytelling that combines climate action with sport activism? Or do you think also the you as a very active sports person, as an example for more action in your own bubble, in your community? So do we need more activism for sport for development within the sports community, or do we need a different storytelling, what Eckhard was just mentioning?
Well, I think we can definitely use both, to be honest. I don't necessarily think that every athlete has to become a climate activist, not just because it's not too distracting or anything. I mean, I always feel like what is even more distracting, ignoring the climate crisis or fighting it? So yeah, I think what Eckhard already mentioned, I think that athletes can definitely be role models. We as a national team, we have a following. we have friends, and therefore I think we do have somewhat of power. And I think that power also comes with responsibility. So, yeah, like you mentioned, I'm quite active as an athlete, and I try to use that power of sports to protect our planet and also social justice. By that, like, I really want to make sure to put that, like, people don't get me wrong, I don't mean by any extent that climate crisis would be solved by individuals or like athletes trying to behave sustainably or anything like that. But I definitely think that sports unite people everywhere, all over the world, also somewhat independent of demographics. So sports may be the biggest network that I know, or maybe the biggest network that someone can imagine. So just provides financial and structural, or like it provides financial and structural resources that individuals don't. So yeah, it would be easy to not use the power of sports and get active in this way.
Nike, so let's talk a little bit what you're doing. So in which regard are you actively engaged when it comes to combining sports, your career as athlete, but also for climate action? What can you tell us?
I think what basically got me together with Stefan and Sports for Future is that in 2019, our whole setup of the national team kind of changed. They implemented a new league. So the World Hockey Federation made us travel the whole world to basically play one match. And we as a team kind of felt that it was irresponsible, but kind of a dilemma. Like, we couldn't just stop traveling because we were preparing for the Olympics, but we also felt like we needed to take responsibility for our missions and send the message out to everyone following us that we can, to an extent, accept the circumstances and the things that we have to do, but we can also be responsible in the same way. So that in 2019, we partnered up with a nature reserve in South Africa, where we started to plant trees and also protect the social community. We tried to different events, like for example, one time we did like a Christmas tree event where people buy Christmas trees. We just recently had a big donation coming from our European Championships. We tried to get all of the teams participating at European Championships involved in our activism, and we collected 20,000 euros just this summer that we can give to the nature reserve and also to the kids and people living a little bit outside Cape Town. So yeah, I think that's the biggest project I've been bringing on so far. And other than that, I try to also engage in social justice.
Okay.
And
yeah.
gender equality.
Thank you. So Stefan and Tanja, again, the big question. Of course, we're talking about sports activism and bringing it to the COP. Why did you decide again to make a side event out of it? Because not for a lot of people, that's the first idea, to combine climate action with sports for SDGs or sports for change, being actively engaged for change. Again, why do we need to start to think more about sports for development? You mentioned the framework, but just in a nutshell again, to bring all these people together, because you curated this program as well.
Because I think this is a joint thing we have to do. This can't, Nika just said it, this can't be done alone. This can't be done by one sector. This can't be done by one person. This can't be done by one group. This is a joint thing we have to do. And what we find here is the combination of the people working on a better world, and we bring it together with the people of sports, whereas we in the field of sports have a lot of people that want that, but it's not so clear how to get there. And I think one of the main thing the framework provides is actually that we think in different use cases. So we try to solve the problem of the athlete, like how should I behave, or the problem of the league, what is actually, where should I go, and which part is actually mine, and which part is actually maybe the job of another sector that has maybe to be solved by a regulatory side, because mobility, like how all the fans get to the stadium, the solution is not that they all come by bike if the stadium is far away. So to make sure which part is yours, which ambition have we to put on that level, and which part is actually where you have to raise your hand and say, wow, this is something I give to another party, they have to solve it.
Luisa, I think this brings us down to talk a little bit about the team spirit for climate action, combining different sectors, combining different communities, different bubbles. Again, zooming out, climate action is a team spirit as well when we look at the COP28. So what are your expectations for the COP, for the upcoming 14 days now that we're in, from the global team for climate action? Do you see a big team spirit right now?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. I would answer that later. But I would really want to refer back to something that Nika said, because I think when it comes to sport, we underestimate how difficult it might be for athletes to engage in something knowing that most of their carbon footprint is a disaster. And I think we have the same situation often with musicians who tour around the world, and that's their job, that's what they live from. And they are also part of a system that expects that from them, that expects availability, that expects something, to happen, to be shown. And at the same time, I think that is a moment where we need to think about the structures that are needed to be in place for then athletes as individuals to make a different choice. So when we had this wonderful situation with the German women's football team, where they collectively decided to take a train. It was one single train. I think, it was a huge situation, but there was one train that they took and they decided this collectively to take burden off the shoulders of those who shouldn't be carrying that by themselves, but collectivizing the responsibility. And I think
that's more the exception still, right?
That is, to be fair, I do think also we see a gender bias here, that I see this in women's sports a lot. I think on the other end, we will kind of have to ramp that one up. But I think that's really important. And yet, I would think there is one important individual responsibility that lies with athletes. And I kind of have changed my mind about that in the last years. I do think we underestimate the role of role models. What is status today? What is a good career? What is a good life? All these things are defined by those who are envied the most. By people like Taylor Swift, who we just heard, or famous athletes that we all look at. What do they make out of their money? What do they make out of what they have achieved? And I think that is also where you set a sign, where you define a standard for a good life. That is what people will long for. No matter how much you will tell them about emissions, they will want this yacht, and they will want those flights, and they will want those lifestyles. So I think there is some cultural aspect to it, where sports plays a tremendous role, because we just know those people so well. And at the same time, I think, imagine we use that potential, kind of doing the Eckhart move here. Imagine we use that potential and turn it around, and found that the most well-paid players in the world would use their money not to wreck the planet, but to save it and fight for justice. So that's the first question.
That's the first question.
And the big question, what do we have to expect out of the next 2 weeks? To be honest, I don't think we come here as a team. That's the first problem. Let's be bold, honest here. I do not think that everyone who has come to this COP, no matter how green the headlines might be, is playing on the same team here. This is a battle cry here. We are not seeing so far that even those who are kind of designing this COP, who are chairing this COP, are necessarily on our team, who are necessarily involved in, really combating the climate crisis with all it takes. And same accounts for probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists who are flooding these halls. We don't even know them. We don't have labels. We don't have anything. So that's the first problem. And the second is, of course, that we find that the time of the good promises is over. There was a time where countries could go out and make the good promises, and everyone would be kind of okay. We've done the promises, and now it's the implementation time, and that's really dirty, because nobody wants to be first. Nobody wants to go if not everyone else is going, but not everyone else is going, so you will have to find a way. And here, I think, sitting in the German Pavilion, we have to look at those countries who are rich, who are privileged, who are industrialized, who are heavy emitters historically spoken. And we look at countries like Germany here to make sure that they're standing on the right side here, to use their pressure, to call for fossil fuel phase out, not any weird compromise that we cannot live with, and at the same time make sure we get into renewables and make sure that the money is working out.
Thank you for that. So with that, I'll open the floor now. If there are any questions now from your side or from the audience here live online. Oh yeah, I do have questions. Do I have any questions live here on site? Perfect. Okay, hang on. I'll just organize my 1,000 cards, and this is your microphone. Please tell us who you are and what is your concrete question.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Julian. I'm from the Technical University of Munich. And I wanted to say I agree that I think role models play a big part in what we do, how we behave. And the negative part is I don't see how a lot of role models behave sustainable in any sort of way. Like, I don't know, flying in private jets, buying big cars is still cool. So I wanted to ask, what do you think, how is it possible to change that in any form, this sort of culture of what people desire from role models, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Do you have a specific question to a specific panelist, or is it a very general, rather general question?
I mean, since Luisa brought it up, it's probably...
Okay, role models very quickly, but I also want to bring Eckhart into that, because of course he also knows a few role models. So let's talk about role models.
Yeah, that's a big problem. It is, and I think maybe it was a mistake that for a long time we kind of didn't combine climate and culture enough. I think we underestimate still that effectively, we're not talking just about a transition that is technical and bureaucratic. We speak of a huge cultural shift because we're redefining what is freedom, what is a good life, what is a good career, what is a good relationship. So that is on the table still, and we will have to find alternatives that are aesthetic, that are nice, that are beautiful, that are, that spark something, that are not based on fossil fuels, and that's really tricky. And it starts with the most basic questions. Do you have, for every career step that you do, have to buy a bigger car? Or can you, find out another way to celebrate your career? The same counts for relationships. Every, relationship step you take, from a relationship to a marriage, to whatever, does it have to be a longer cruise every time? Or can we redefine that? Do we have to have the Traum of the Eigenheim? Or can we have the dream of a communal place where people are living, can we redefine our dreams, our collective dreams as a society? These things, I think, for a long time weren't, I don't think we dared to speak about them. And now everyone is really surprised that others are speaking about a culture war that's not coming from us. I do think two very interesting things, speaking of the role models. One is we see increasingly people at the end of their careers saying, you know what, I've been there, I've done that, and it was stupid. And I think Herbert Grönemeyer is a beautiful example of that, who came to my podcast to tell me he has this collection of all these cars, but now he is taking the tram. And he said, I used to have this thing with the cars, and he has a house for the cars, and a person in the house who takes care of the house and the cars. It's just, And he says, publicly even, I'm not doing it. I'm thinking of Sebastian Vettel, an amazing also supporter here, who said, I've done the racing, I'm on the peak of my career, and you know what? I can't do it anymore. And I'm going to do my permaculture things and so on. So there's this end career situation. The problem is that for those who are starting their career, that's often, we can't wait for everyone. But I do see another thing, and that's coming from people like Enissa Amani, who is, huge in international pop culture, I would even say. And she came to me recently, and she said, as a migrant comedian and speaker and feminist, she and I think she was kind of referring to her community as well. They said, we were always waiting to have a go. We were always waiting to have those privileges as well that we saw in the majority white society, or the bigness and the status and the missions. And she looked at me then and she said, you know what, I found out we don't have that go anymore. We have to let it go. We can't wait for that time to come to us, for them to do all the things in a larger scale. That's basically the story of Africa right now, who won't go the same pathway as we did, luckily enough. And so there was a switch, and it wasn't at the end of the career. It came from her own, I would say, liberation, even maybe. Yeah. So there's hope. Thank you. Eckhard, I want to bring you in as well when we talk about role models. And of course, you know, you talk to a lot of people, you engage with a lot of people also already claiming themselves as role models or change makers. So what is your take on that? Do we need more than Stefan? Yes, please. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you?
Oh. Should what?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Luisa, for pinpointing that it's only old white men at the end of their career starting to seriously change their behavior. And I'm part of it. No,
we understood you correctly. Don't worry, we got it. Okay.
No, the Scientists for Future wouldn't be there without Fridays for Future. So it's a give and take, and I think role models have to be empowered to speak up, even if their footprint is not perfect. You can't wait for anyone to be perfect and then speak up. And this is a big hindrance, a big obstacle that many people who just imagine being a football star. My sister was in hockey national team, so Nika, I apologize. You have 20-year-olds who all of a sudden become millionaires. And many people think, oh, this is the one game, the one aim in life. And Luisa, thank you for telling us that it's changing now, but it's not rapid enough. But many people don't dare to speak up because they think, oh, the next time I'll be photographed taking a plane, there will be a huge shitstorm. Just think of the leverage you have, for example, in food. We have to transform the food system. We need the planetary health diet. We have to get away from all this meat. So every single soccer or hockey or sports star who says, well, actually, I thought I need a lot of meat for my protein, and now I found a different way. Just starting with one idea that is simple, it's a low-hanging fruit. That would be a start. Another thing that I want to bring in, fans want to have something in common with a star. And coming back to Taylor Swift, imagine the ticketing system offering, when you buy a ticket for the football stadium, for a theater, for Herbert Grönemeyer, or whatever, Helene Fischer, you name it, everyone could be involved in this. If you round up to the next €1 or $1, and the star gives the second dollar, and the company is a foundation, whatever you have, gives the third piece of money. So the fan could be incentivized to say, if I move just one step, there will be 3 steps and 3 trees to be planted. There will be 3 square meters of biodiversity ground being safe forever. So we have to think more creatively about the power that you have if you have something that the millions of people we can reach through sports being part of the solution and not being perfect for a start. That's my point.
Thank you. I do have a comment from Stefan and also a question. So quick comment, Stefan, and then there's a question from the online audience.
Quick comment, thank you. I just want to get back to the role model thing. Yes, we need those role models, and we already have some, but I think we can't wait until everybody's mindset has changed to do the right thing. Let's say Ines Fitzgerald is a UK athlete. She refused to fly to Australia to a tournament because of the flight emissions. That's a great sign, but it basically changed nothing because the system stays the same, and we fly around for many different reasons. So we have to change the system. If we want to have Olympics without a carbon footprint, we have to decarbonize the aviation industry. And this is something which sport can point out as well. If we want people to go to a stadium, to a Bundesliga match by public transport, we can say, okay, feel free, do this, here's the public transport, but if it's not attractive enough, they won't do that. And so we have to point out that we have to change the systems. And I think sport can play this role as well, coming through a different door, like all the scientific-based facts, which obviously are not enough until now.
Coming to the question from the audience, so Dominic Fritz is writing us. Thank you very much for the work that you're already doing. How will the kickoff happen? Workshops, online, webinars? Give us a glimpse of what's in the pipeline.
What's in the pipeline? Stefan mentioned and told you a lot about the global approach. So one of the next steps is that we in Q1 are going to see all these global partners and work with them, because what we have done and what we have so far is a very, let's say, we come from a very privileged country, German perspective, and now we have to make sure that is also the perspective of the world. So the first talks we have had with Japan, with Australia, with Africa indicate that there are certain things that we have to adapt, and we will. So that's the one part. The second part is to accelerate the network and have more people joining in. And the third is to really engage people. So I think this is the next 3 steps.
Do we have more questions from your side? There's one, and wonderful. I think the microphone, Christoph, yeah, thank you. Tell us who you are and what's your question.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Anne-Marie Meister. I'm the co-founder and director of Artport Making Waves. We are a non-profit in Germany and other countries combining art, science, and informal education dedicated to climate change and ocean protection. And regarding role models, this is always a very important topic for me and my work. But if you are coaching, if you are consultants, why don't you go to the younger representatives of the sports community and train them to become role models and inspiring people? Because obviously we are already old and experienced, but the younger people, they want to become that, but they need coaches, they need people who guide them, and they can be the spokespersons for the younger generation. Why don't you do that?
Interesting question. So it's on which side of the line should we start, coaching the younger athletes? Nike, maybe you can join us as well in a second.
I think we have to start on all sides. I think that role model thing is, that's why we're probably circling around that question since 10 minutes. I think that role model thing is one of the big things why sports has that tremendous impact, because it has these role models. Personally, I think we have to work with the youth, but at the same time, we have also to work with the ones that have the millions and trillions of followers. And I think it does not only come from the, let's say, incentive side. I think it also comes from the regulatory side and saying where is the right way to do things. We have seen that with developing that sustainability standard for the German Bundesliga. There were ones that were already on their path, but there were a lot that weren't on the path, and they're all moving. So I think that is kind of a give and take. Yeah, the ones that can be incentivized, I think, are already on their way. We see Nika, we see all these great people. Some of them are in our network, some are not yet. They're moving because they're intrinsically motivated to move. But then there are the others, and we need to get them moving. And at the same time, yes, we definitely are looking into the younger ones and next generation, because this is probably one of the big triggers. But if we want to change rapidly, I think we need all generations to be at the same table, and we need, especially to get going, we need the ones that are on top currently. And Luisa already mentioned some of the big names. I think we need these people to get going and show that sustainability can be really sexy. I think that is one of the big things. If we're talking lifestyle, it still sounds a little bit as if all the people that are sustainable are coming from, oh my God, grief and fear, and it's so horrible, and you can't do this, and you can't do this. I think we totally have to get away from there. And we have to find other pictures of how you can be really happy having a sustainable lifestyle. I think we need role models for that.
Nike, do you have a comment on that? Just a question when it comes to, do we need more role models on a senior level, or do we need more coaching for athletes on a younger level? And then I come to your question.
Well, I think it kind of sounds like every athlete could also be a role model, and just like whenever they want to talk about stuff like climate activism, they just imagine any kind of football player just all of a sudden speaking up about climate activism. I don't think that would be authentic and would even work as, like, that person would work as a role model. I just don't think that's how it works, unfortunately. So I think, like, obviously we do need role models to put pressure on the government, states, federations and stuff from different directions, but more than that, we definitely need the system to change. Like we could have all, like talking about hockey, for example, we could have all of our hockey players asking not to travel and being like role models, not traveling, for example, when they go on an individual vacation. But we still need the German or like the World Hockey Federation to stop implementing new leagues where we have to travel the world.
Yeah, thank you.
So we need both, and definitely the youth as well.
Thank you, Nike. I hope you can hear us because the connection is a bit wobbly. So this is your time for your question.
Thank you. I'm Moritz Meyer from Impact Hub Zurich, and I'd like to thank you for pointing out the potential to unite people through sports around something else than Herbert Grönemeyer. That's great. But at the same time, sports is also in danger of being greenwashed. If we think about the Qatar World Cup in 2022, the FIFA labeled it as a carbon neutral event, and that's outright dangerous if people start believing this and act accordingly. They got fined for it, for deceiving the public. But in this area, what do you believe? Who should be calling out organizations for greenwashing? Should it be watchdogs? Should it be players? And we've talked about Taylor Swift a lot, but Cristiano Ronaldo once took a Pepsi can away from his press conference, and it was in the news for like 10 days. So if we could get some of these players to say something. Thank you.
Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah. When we have discussion with organizations in sports, it happens sometimes that we say, okay, we have done this and that, and we are making a party out of it, or press release or something like that. But we see that it's not really changing anything within the system and the business model. And this is what SPORTS20 tries to do also, to give the framework of the 100%. And so we need to see the gap between what we are actually doing and what is necessary to be fully transformed. And so we are not the ones probably who start finger pointing, but I think by showing what is necessary to be really transformed, you will see on your own where greenwashing arises and where is real change.
Wonderful. Do I see more hands? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up here. I don't have any more online questions. Nevertheless, it's been a pleasure to have you on stage. So thank you, Luisa Neubauer, Nike Lorenz, Dr. Eckhard von Hirschhausen joining us, and of course, thanks to Tanja Verkau and Stefan Wagner. Thank you. And one more announcement, of course, evening event starts at 7 p.m. that you mentioned earlier. Right, Stefan, where do we meet? Okay, 7 p.m. local time. Thank you for watching. And we continue tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. local Dubai time with a deep dive into Germany's contribution through the integrated greenhouse gas monitoring system. So I'll see you soon tomorrow at 10 a.m. Dubai local time.
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP28 in Dubai. Ambitious, just together.